back to the Faith and Formation podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 8th. So welcome in. Hopefully you've had a good morning so far, and hopefully you've already cracked your Bible open and spent a little time with the Lord, and then came here to listen to a little devotional here on 2 Samuel chapter 14. That's where we're at this morning. And so teenagers, if you're following along there in your devotional, hopefully you've already read this and had a little prayer time, and then jumped in here and joined us. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a part here of this podcast. This morning, we're going to look at a devotional here called A Drastic Measure. A Drastic Measure. So grab that coffee cup, or maybe if you're sitting in your car, you can turn the radio up a little bit, and we'll hear something from the Lord hopefully this morning. A Drastic Measure. Our theme verse for this morning is 2 Samuel chapter 14 and verse 30. It says there, "Therefore he said unto his servants, See, Joab's field is near mine, and he hath barley there. Go and set it on fire." Interesting. You know, as I was getting ready for this devotional, I was thinking about some of the different types of people and friends that we have. The people that we know, maybe the family or friends that we're well acquainted with. And I was thinking about, there's so many different types of people in this world. And I was thinking, do you know anybody that overreacts to things? They sort of, maybe you tell a joke and then they just laugh hysterically and no one else is laughing. It's just them and they're laughing very hard, and you kind of look at them like, okay, it wasn't that funny, but they just overreact. Or maybe you tell someone, that you lost your pencil or something, and they just fall on the ground and gasp at what a terrible thing has just happened. They overreact to stuff, right? I mean, I know people like that, and you probably do too. Well, here in this passage, we find a man named Absalom who doesn't get his way. He doesn't get what he wants, and he overreacts. He asks for something, he doesn't get that, and then he just reacts in this crazy, absurd way. And we're going to see that here this morning. So here, Absalom, he is come back to around where David's at, and he's causing problems. He's in the city there, and he's trying to work this angle. If you read the story of Absalom, he's a very deceitful man. And he's what some people would call a slippery person. He's very smooth with people. He's very charismatic. He can influence a lot of people. And yet, along with that, usually comes a lot of deceit. And we see that in Absalom's life. But in this specific instance, he's talking to Joab. And he asks Joab to come and see him. He wants to talk to him. And he asks him, hey, why don't you come by and see me? Well, Joab doesn't answer him. He asks 2 times. And then after the second time of not getting an answer, he reacts in this just crazy manner. He tells his servants to go and to burn down the barley fields that Joab owns that's close by to his house. To burn them down because Joab wouldn't come and see him, or he didn't get an answer from him. He told him to go and burn down his barley fields. I mean, just an absurd reaction. And that's what he does. This, I think, really gives us a view into the heart, into the mind, into the life of Absalom. We get this idea and this view of who he really is. And that he was, one, used to getting his way. People that overreact like that usually are used to getting what they want. And you can see that in his life. He's used to asking for something and it being there. He was part of the royal family. And so he's used to asking for it, and boom, it's his. He's got it. He doesn't have to worry about it. It's right there. Well, now he's in this position where Joab, who's also a leader, said, either decides not to listen to him, just ignores him, or whatever he says in his own mind, he decides, I'm not going to go and see Absalom. And so then we see this reaction, just brash, immature, and probably most of all, very proud. He tells his servants to go and burn down this barley field. Shows us really the true colors of Absalom. I think really it shows an immaturity, as I mentioned. And think about this even in our modern world. People that overreact like this when they don't get their way are immature. What group of people, what age group of people whines, fusses, does something drastic when they don't get their way? What's the first age group of humanity that comes to your mind? The one that comes to my mind is a baby, right? A baby. When they don't have the food that they want, when they're not being held how they want, whether they cry and they throw a fit and they pout, whatever it is, right? A baby, the most immature of human beings, very immature. And that's really the attitude that Absalom is approaching this with. He doesn't get his way, and so he throws this huge fit by destroying all these crops. Shows us an immature person. And unfortunately, a lot of royalty was kind of like this. When they didn't get what they wanted, they didn't have the maturity to sort of step up a little bit and say, you know what, it's okay. I'll deal with it. I'll move on. It's not a big deal. And that's exactly how Absalom was. It's exactly how he was. And very proud to decide that, you know what, my request is more important than the entire field of grain that Joab here has planted. What I need is more important. How proud is that? How proud is that? We really see some true colors here from Absalom. And by the way, we see this type of person in our society all over the place. I mean, all over the place. People, they don't get their way, so they riot in the streets. The election doesn't go how they want it to go. And so they pillage places and they set things on fire and they yell and scream, and we have to pull the police out and the National Guard to control what's going on because we have a bunch of babies living in our country. And that's exactly how a lot of Christians are as well. And so the question comes to us, how do we react when we don't get what we want? How to react? This really is just an exercise in maturity and humility. We have to understand that not everything that we want do we deserve. In fact, none of it, really. Of the things that we want do we deserve. None of them. God is gracious and good to us and gives us many, many good things. The Bible tells us that every good gift and perfect gift cometh from above. God gives us those things that are good and right and what he wants us to have. And so we ought to be thankful, grateful for those things. And then if we don't get everything that we want, we ought to move on. Don't be like this Absalom character. If we continue to read his story, he's just so deceitful. And I'm sure in the coming devotionals we'll talk more about Absalom, about what he does, the lies and the deceit that he goes through, the undermining of authority. So, the question now goes to you. How do you react? How do I react when things don't go our way? Right? Maybe for the teenagers involved in sports, we don't get the playing time that we want, or we don't run the drills that we want in practice, or something that the coach says to us we don't agree with. What do we do in that moment? That really is going to be a good judge of how proud you are as a person and how mature you've grown as a Christian. The mature Christian says, you know what, it's okay. I can move on. God is enough for me. And even if I don't get everything that I want, it's okay. It's okay. I'll deal with what I have. I'll thank the Lord for all the good things that I have, and I'll move on. That's the mark of a mature Christian. It's what we all ought to strive to be like. Whether you're the king's son or not, you should always react to things with kindness, forgiveness, prayer. Was everything done to Absalom the right thing? No, I'm sure some wrong things were done to him, but what's the correct biblical way to react to that? Well, it's to forgive. It's to forgive. We see that all throughout the scriptures. Should Joab probably have come and see him when Absalom asked him? Probably. That would have been the kind thing to do, right? To not just ignore him. But no matter what he did, it did not merit this reaction by Absalom. Be careful how you react to things. A mature, humble Christian will take things in stride and stay calm, even in a disagreeable time. So a little checkup here for us this morning. How do I react when things don't go my way? In the classroom, when I don't like what's happening, when on the sports field, when something that happens that I don't like, when someone in authority tells me something I don't like, whatever it is, how do we react? That's going to tell us a whole lot about who we are. We ought to be humble, and we ought to be happy with what God has given to us. All right, that is a devotional here this morning, a drastic measure, little lesson from the life of Absalom. Our memory verse for this week is Psalm 84:11. Psalm 84:11, the last day for this verse, says, "Therefore the Lord is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly." Psalm 84:11. That's our memory verse. And then today, as you go to prayer, remember to spend a little extra time praying for your fellow teens today. Or if you're not a teen, pray for those that are close to you, your friends, your peers, whoever it might be. Take a little time and pray for your fellow teenagers today. And then for our teens, spend a little extra time praying for Vasco, one of our teenagers. Bring him up, mention him in your prayers as you pray this morning. All right, thanks again for joining us in the Faith and Formation podcast, and we'll catch you next time.